modern day fishing. It's pretty cool.
Oh my god!
But back in the 1800s, they didn't have that kind of technology, obviously. They didn't have reels. Well, in 1820 something, they started to make reels, but they still weren't anything like we think of today. They didn't have strong line. They didn't have great poles, and things were just very different. And I want to see just how hard it is to catch a fish using the methods they had back then. Through my research, I was really surprised at just how much. I never really thought about it, but fishing today is still comprised of the same three elements that they used back in the 1800s. And that was a rod, and they used cane rods, line, which was silk line or horsehair line, and a hook. While today a hook with a worm on it isn't exactly the go-to method for most sport fishermen or people that are really into it, it was the mainstay of sport fishing back in the 1800s. It was either called fly fishing, where they used artificial lures and tied them with, no mom, okay, I'm filming, fly lures, real small lures made to be something that they're not, like small insects. But there was fly fishing and there was coarse fishing. And coarse fishing is what I am going to try and replicate. Coarse fishing is basically fishing with bait, live or dead bait, not something that they faked. So today I'm going to try to replicate, to the best of my ability, an 1800s stream fishing setup. So I'm gonna go do that. Alright, so after some scavenging around the house and in the woods, I have come up with the supplies that I've needed for today and what I'm going to use as a substitute for the real thing. Now, first, I have this nice, I don't know, like 6 or 7 foot long tree sapling. It was quite hard to get out. I thought it would be pretty easy, but it wasn't. That's going to replicate my cane pole or bamboo pole because this is what I'm using. And then for my standard line, or like what I'm going to use to be my strongest line, I've got this spool of yarn. Just your standard yarn spool, just normal yarn. It's pretty strong though. And it's really similar to what they used back then. And then they'd tar it. They'd use like tar to make it more waterproof, but I'm only going to use this once, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. To replicate the horsehair line or the silk line, I got this Trilene 4-pound test, super thin line. It's basically same exact size and same diameter as horsehair, but obviously I don't have horsehair, and I really don't feel like sitting there and tying horsehair together because obviously that's very tedious. And this is really, besides its strength, this is just about the same thing. So that's going to be my replica. And for my bobber, I took some of my mom's corks and through a lot of pain and trial and error, I got some twig and shoved it right through the cork, pretty much exactly what the Colonials would have done. They would use cork or acorns even, and then had some these ends sticking out so that I can tie it to the line, get it to the right depth, and all that good stuff. This should do the trick though. I mean, they look terrible, but they should get the job done. Now, these hooks are what I'm going to be using. The reason I'm using these is because they're pretty similar in the way that they were shaped to Colonial fishing hooks. The only real difference that you have here is, see how this has an eye hole so that you can put the string through it and tie it to it? Well, back in the 1800s, they'd use spade hooks, which means that instead of this being a hole, this would have been bent down. It would just be a flat piece of metal, no hole in it. They would tie the knot onto the shaft of the hook, and then it would be a knot that wouldn't be able to pull off because this got wider. And if the fish were to pull and the line, it would just stay on here. The knot would just keep getting tighter and tighter. But this is what I'm going to be using. So after explaining everything piece by piece, I think I'm going to actually attempt to do this now. And let's just see how this goes. Every primary source that I read in my research said that your thick line should be from the tip of your rod to the bait being in the water. It should be about 2 yards or double the length. So you have some preference. I think that for where I'm going to be, I'm going to probably have it somewhere like right in the middle of that. I don't want it too long, but I also don't want it too short so that I can't reach parts that I want to reach. So what I'm doing here, what I'm starting off by doing, is just taking the yarn, doing a double knot down here, because what I learned from my research, and I wouldn't have thought about this, is not to have your line start at the top, because if you were to hook onto a big fish or a fish that could break your pole, you wouldn't want your line attached up there, because if they broke it in half, there goes the fish and half your pole. But if the line is attached down here and your hand is holding it here and it breaks and there's a line connecting this, then you still have a hold of the line. You can still bring the fish in. Now that I've wrapped it all the way along, I'm gonna make a little niche. Dogs are barking, lawnmowers, you know. The only day that I'm trying to do my final, it's loud around here. So as I was saying, I'm gonna make just like a little niche so that if a fish pulls on it, it won't just slip off the end of this rod and it'll stay seated. All right, well, my rod is together, and now it's time to just have some patience. Try to catch a fish. I'm gonna be using my hook with this bobber. Gonna put some mealworms on here. We'll see how this goes. All right. Well, it's been 3 hours and haven't gotten anything. So I think I'm just gonna call it a day there. I tried. I'm gonna restart that too. That was stupid. Okay. Here we are. So. What am I doing? And, back when? I haven't set up anything. What am I talking about? So, project, why am I looking at myself instead of here? I need to be looking at you. Oh my god. I need to restart everything. I just broke my lamp. I just broke my lamp. Check this out. Nice. Good. This is good. Good start. And I was really surprised after doing that have helped us a technology that has, of course, so even though it's, what? Where was I going with this? Okay.